Hey friends, this is video number 3 and Colossians chapter 2. If you haven't seen the other videos, go back and watch those, Colossians chapter 1. And then of course we had an overview there before that. Now in Colossians chapter 2, Paul starts this chapter by really anguishing over the faith of Colossae. I mean, he's really just, he has this kind of empathetic shepherding mentality of saying, you know, I see that there are struggles in the area. I see the church in Rome. I see, you know, the Greeks, and I see the Jews kind of coming together. And there's all these different teachings and forces and things that are at play here. And I really anguish over you all staying in step with being built up in the good news of Jesus and being alive in Christ and your faith being centered all around Christ and not your good works, and not just being one of the gods, and not just, you know, Jesus and circumcision or Jesus and the Torah or Jesus and traditions or whatever the case may be. He's really anguishing over saying, hey, just stay rooted in the gospel. What you've heard and learned from Epaphras, what you're hearing in this letter, what you've been hearing about the gospel from the apostles and all that, just stay rooted there. And he anguishes over it. In fact, at the end of the chapter, he says, he just point blank asks, why do you, let's just read it. He says in verse 20, he says, if with Christ you died to the elemental spirits of the world, why, as if you were still alive in the world, do you submit to regulations? Things like do not handle, do not taste, do not touch, referring to things that all perish as they're used, according to human precepts and teaching. They have indeed an appearance of wisdom in promoting self-made religion and asceticism. I don't think I nailed that word. And severity to the body, but they are of no value in stopping the indulgences of the flesh. His point is here, it's either faith in Jesus Christ or it's just some other thing from the flesh. And that's one of the things that's so unique about the Christian faith, is that other faiths, it's about what you do, what you can bring to the table. But here in Christianity, it's what Christ has done. It's faith in Christ being the one. It's saying that we can't keep the flesh at bay. It was Him who fulfilled the law to get in good with God. And it's in Him that we have righteousness in front of God. That's the whole point here. And Paul, in this letter, he's just pleading with them, supremacy in Christ, being built up in Christ, faith in Christ. Reject all these other teachings that say Jesus and. It's Jesus. Because it has to be Jesus or. It can't be Jesus and. That's the point here. And so he's saying, he's pleading with them. So for us, when we do things like fasting, we fast not necessarily to simply reorient ourselves to say, okay, the flesh is here, but there are other things more important than that, and I need to get these in the right perspective. The point is to reorient our hearts to say, we can't do that, and we've got to focus on Christ. It's His righteousness. God, please, I like we've talked about before, John the Baptist says, I must decrease and He must increase. So we reorient ourselves to that reality, not reorient ourselves to say, okay, I can get the flesh under control if I just do blank. That's Paul's whole point here in chapter 2. He's really trying to get them to understand that you just can't do that. And so for us, when we're in life group, you know, it may be good to ask the question, are there things today that in our church tradition, maybe in our family tradition, maybe things we're brought up in where we say, it's got to be Jesus and. You know, like the new Jewish Christians are saying, it's Jesus and you. Now that Jesus got you in the door, if you want to be a real Christian, you got to be circumcised. Right? Those kind of things. Are there things at play right now where we just have to say, yeah, I'm going to reject those traditions because they're actually hindering me from the supremacy of Jesus, the authority of Jesus over my life. And so that's really the point of chapter 2. I did want to highlight one other thing there. Verse 15, it says, He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in Him. So again, same point there. In Him, in Him, in Him, right? Everything is about Him. It's in Him. But also this speaks to a very cultural thing that's happening right now is, you know, Christians are being put in the gladiator arena and people are laughing at Christians and, you know, and persecuting them and killing them left and right. And I think there's a temptation to have sort of a victim mentality in that kind of situation. And don't get me wrong, Paul is very empathetic and he doesn't want Christians to die. But what he's saying is, really, you ought to pity the ones who oppose Christ, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to be put to open shame. And so he's encouraging them to say, that's not the worst thing ever. The worst thing ever is to oppose the supremacy of Christ, because he is preeminent. He is over all things. And that's really the point here. So as you go through Colossians 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're going to see that theme of the supremacy of Christ and be rooted in Christ, and everything centers around him. So as you get in your life group session, I guess this would be session 3, really talk about that point. Are there things, are there traditions, are there things that are getting in the way? Maybe there are thoughts we have. Maybe there are things we brought to the table from an early age before we were even Christian that we still kind of latch onto, right? So what would it look like for us to be a life group that just rethinks some of these things, to say, are there elemental teachings like Paul talks about here that are really actually getting in the way of me embracing more fully my faith in Christ? So that's chapter 2. I can't wait to send out chapter 3. I am going to wait. I'll send it next week. But I hope everything goes well for you in your groups. And please let me know what questions you have. All right. Talk to you soon. See you.